que mas romantic.
Hello and welcome to Olympic Dispatch by Skimo Gold, the premier podcast and YouTube show for ski mountaineering interviews and race analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, the Olympics are here and Skimo is coming at you. We're going big here on Skimo Gold, daily episodes from now through the Skimo races. That's on February 19th for the sprint and February 21st for the mixed relay. If you're into Skimo like I am, you probably can hardly contain your enthusiasm just like me. And if you're new to Skimo, if you're just hearing about this, welcome. Welcome to one of the best sports around. We are glad to have you here, and this episode is for you. My guest today is Andrew Vontz. Andrew hosts the fantastic Choose the Hard Way podcast. You may have recently heard his interview there with Jens Vogt, the legendary cyclist. You may have also seen Andrew's Substack, Choose the Hard Way, and you may have heard of his podcast consultancy, One Real Voice. Andrew, in fact, has been incredibly helpful to me in honing my own podcast game. He was generous enough to join me for today's conversation, in which he presents simple questions like, what is Skimo and how do you ski uphill, and what happens in these different disciplines, and what are the disciplines of Skimo that are not in the Olympics, and is Team USA in the Olympics, and who are the athletes, so on and so forth. So, Mr. Vontz, thank you for your time, audience. I think that you're going to like this. If you're coming to this and you're just learning about the sport, be sure to dial in and share this with someone. Share it with your friends who are also stoked about the Olympics and want to know about this new sport that's joining the games, because we've got a lot to look forward to with Team USA, if you're an American, and also beyond. Over the next couple of weeks, our daily episodes are something that has never been done before in Skimo. We have so many podium contenders. We have so many athletes from Italy. We have commentators. We have coaches. We've got everything you need to get your Skimo stoke and knowledge to maximum level for the starting line. Again, on February 19th for the sprint race and February 21st for the mixed relay. Thanks for being here, and we are pumped to roll with you. Thanks also to our sponsors who make this possible. It takes a lot of work, a lot of bandwidth to make daily episodes happen. And I'm just so proud to have a number of great brands supporting this journey with us. Dynafit and Pomoka, foundational brands in Skimo, also in trail running, backcountry skiing, and more. Watch those Olympians, watch the World Cup races. You're going to see a lot of these pink Dynafit skis. And you'll also, of course, see Dynafit with people like me who are out there just skiing for fun, up the hill and back down every single day. I'm wearing Dynafit head to toe, and I've got those pink skins, the Pomoka skins on the bottom of my skis, helping me stick to the snow. Thanks also to Training Peaks, athletes and coaches who are interested in better insight and communication and planning should check out Training Peaks. This is the only platform I've used for over a decade as an athlete and an endurance coach. Check out Revanta Creatine by Neuro Reserve. This is stuff I take every single day. You've probably heard about creatine for strength, for brain health, and so forth. I started taking it when I was recovering from a bad concussion a couple years ago, and I think it's been a big tool in get me back to where I am. That's Revanta Creatine by Neuro Reserve. And finally, Camp, little Italian brand based over there in in the heart of Skimo. They've literally been in this sport and the other mountain alpine sports, rock climbing, trail running, etc., from the start. Thanks a lot to camp. All right, folks, time to roll. Day one of Olympic Dispatch by Skimo Gold. Here it is. Andrew Vontz, what is Skimo? Andrew Vontz, welcome to Skimo Gold. I am pleased to be here with you today. I hear your voice often on the Choose the Hard Way podcast, on the Beyond the Peloton cycling podcast that you do with Spencer Martin, and also in the podcast consulting that we've done together via your program, One Real Voice. I've been podcasting pretty much every week for over 5 years now, so I feel like I'm pretty good and I have it down. And I also know there's room for improvement. Everyone can improve. That's why elite athletes still have coaches. And you have really helped me make my podcasting better. So thank you for that. What should we know briefly about these things that you have going, Andrew?
Yeah, you're welcome, Travis. It's been great to work with you. And even the most high luster gold can still be polished, right? Like it can really be brought to a high polish and gleam. And what I do with One Real Voice is that I work with senior executives and leaders who are at the top of their industry, at the top of their game. And they know that in this new communications environment, if you want to thrive when you're having an open-ended dynamic conversation like we're going to have today that I hope blows people's minds, it requires a really different skill set than sitting down with the New York Times or going on Bloomberg or MSNBC for 5 to 7 minutes. And when I was a communications executive at a billion-dollar company, what I was teaching people and what I was using myself for those types of media opportunities is really different than what I've been doing for the last 7 years, hosting hundreds of podcast episodes and being a guest on dozens of podcasts myself. And that's what I'm really excited to teach people. So I work with them so that they're comfortable, proficient, and dynamic when they sit down in these settings. And it's been awesome to work with someone as talented as you. And I have to say, Travis, as talented as you are as a podcast host and guest, I hear that you're really something else on skis. So I'm looking forward to talking about Skimo today. Before we do that, if anyone wants to learn more about One Real Voice, you can find me on LinkedIn. Of course, you can go to @hardwaypod on Instagram, or you can shoot me an email to hello@onerealvoice.com, and you can find Choose the Hard Way and Beyond the Peloton everywhere you listen. We're here today, of course, Travis, to talk about Skimo. And I've shared with you, I am highly Skimo curious. I'll confess to having gone down quite a YouTube rabbit hole around this. Equally, I know there are a lot of people out there. And Travis, I think the first question they might have is, why aren't these people taking the lift?
Yeah, it's funny when you practice this sport of skimo. Sometimes you're doing it out of bounds in the back country, in varying terrain. Lots of times, especially in the training, you're inbound. You're at a ski area going up the hill, typically on a designated route. And sometimes these routes where you go uphill are under the chairlift. And Andrew, I can't tell you how many times, and anyone who does this sport can relate, the people on the chairlift, they think that they're the first person ever saying, "You're going the wrong way," or "You could be going faster." Or sometimes, often it's complimentary as well. They might wait at the top of the lift where you're transitioning and going back down here, and they go, "Man, I can't believe how fast you're going." Or they'll see me do multiple laps, and they're like, "Wow, how do you do this?" And some of them, here in Colorado, Monarch Mountain Resort, it's the Texans, and they stop and they're super nice. And, "Hey, buddy, how you doing that? How are you going uphill?" So these are questions I get a lot. And the reason, why don't you just ride the chairlift? You're a cyclist, and many other athletes are runners, hikers, adventurers. Like, because it's hard, because that is the hard way, and you want to do something hard. You want to get a workout. Maybe you're getting ready for a race, and you want to do that. And even if you are only interested in the downhill, right? Shredding that pow, finding the cool stuff, dropping a cornice, very often that cool terrain is not at the top of the lift. That's somewhere else, and you have to get there somehow. So often the best way to do it is by actually skiing uphill with climbing skins on the bottom of the ski.
It's something I'm highly curious about. I happen to live probably about a mile and a half from a small ski hill here in Mid-Coast Maine, and I know how influential you are, Travis, and that there might be a ski sponsor out there who wants to get me in the game so that I can discover the magic. It could be a zero to hero story. I could be the first person in this decade of my life going to the podium at a future Olympics. Probably not, but Travis,
Yeah, you wouldn't be the first. there's a
yeah,
lot
but
of there's a lot of guys and gals, 40s and 50s, who are converting from cycling, triathlon, running, and some of them are pretty good.
absolutely. So before we get there, let's just go over the absolute basics. Can you just describe the format itself? How
Yeah.
long are the events, and what are some of the technical parameters of what we're going to see happening in Skimo?
Yeah, well, great question. So the sport of skimo or ski mountaineering or randonnée or ski touring has deep roots. There's accounts from the late 1800s of guys making journeys across the Alps and using skis in addition to snowshoes and other things to move. The very first Olympics, there was a sport called military patrol that involved skiing and shooting. And if you watch those videos, there's some similarities to what's become biathlon that's been in the Olympics for quite some time, but there's also many similarities to what is now ski mountaineering. You move forward a little bit in World War One times and World War II. Many of the European militaries were training and doing these things, moving through the mountains on skis, including going uphill by literally strapping animal furs, animal pelts to the bottom of the skis, to allow them to go uphill. And the U.S. got into that as well. The 10th Mountain Division in World War II training, these were soldiers who trained in these disciplines of moving through the mountains on skis. They trained at Camp Hale here in Colorado, and so there's a historical undertoning to it. More recently, you get to the late mid to late 20th century. This became a huge thing in Europe, and they had the World Cup events, and then they also had these epic events where you're going for, it could be 2 hours or 4 hours, or maybe it's 4 hours a day for many days in a row in an event like the Pierramenta, and you're climbing uphill on the skis and then skiing back down on the skis. And of course, the gear came along, it got light, it got fast, just like bike stuff. You look at these race skis behind me. The ski weighs 700 grams. The binding is about the size of a bike pedal, and then the carbon fiber boots literally weigh about the same as a pair of running shoes. So that's kind of the basics of what's involved. Looking right here at the Olympics, there's two disciplines. One is the sprint, and the other is the mixed relay. The sprint is a solo race, and Olympics fans, if you like Summer Olympics, you can think of maybe the 800 or 1500-meter run on the track. These are very fast, high octane races of 4 minutes or less. Maybe you're into swimming. Think of the individual medley relay that, again, is a very hard all-out event where you do 4 different strokes in one race. If you're a Winter Olympics fan, think about the biathlon, where endurance athletes are going full bore, max heart rate, and then they have to stop and shoot and do something highly cognitive. And you can also think of newer events like the border cross or skier cross, where you have people racing head to head all out downhill through gates. So the sprint race in the Olympics, in some ways, it incorporates all of the above. It's 6 athletes going at once. It's all out, start to finish, about 3 minutes. And within those 6 minutes, you're skiing uphill, you're running uphill, you're skiing downhill, very challenging terrain on skis that are not made to go downhill. And then you're also doing, this is the fourth discipline, the all important transitions between those activities. So in a 3-minute race, there's 3 transitions and they're all very, very important. So it's highly dynamic. I think people are gonna gain high interest right from the start. And then the other event, the mixed relay, this one takes a little bit longer. It's about half an hour total. You got one man and one woman on the team. The woman goes first. She does a circuit that has 2 climbs and 2 descents. Hands off to the man. He does the same circuit. Hand off back to the woman. Same circuit again. Back to the man. Same circuit again. So it's the same loop 4 times, twice by the woman, twice by the man. And again, it's easy to understand. And because it's kind of controlled and focused, even if you haven't seen it before, you can totally tell what's going on. And it's exciting. There's a lot of back and forth. There's all these different skills that really shine a light on. Someone's a little faster on the uphill. Someone's a little faster on the running part. Someone's transitions are a bit better. In the relay, the male and female both have to be very good, or on equal level to do well. So that's what's coming in the Olympics. Team USA in the Olympics, it was a nail biter. It came down to the final qualifying event, and they did great. The male teammate is Cam Smith, my usual co-host on this show, and the female teammate is Anna Gibson. A great story. Cam's been one of the leaders on Team USA for almost a decade now. He's 30. It may be his last chance at the Olympics. He had 2 big injuries last few years, came back, boom, top of the game. And Anna, that World Cup where she qualified, it was her first competitive skimo race, which is absolutely amazing. She grew up as an alpine skier. She was a Nordic skiing national champion in high school. Then she became a collegiate runner. Then she became a pro runner. And now she is one of the best trail runners in the world. Cam found her this summer, said, "Hey, Anna, you want to try skimo?" And she said yes. And now she's in the Olympics less than a year later.
Sounds like professional wrestling. We've got dynamic storylines, we've got drama. And you mentioned there's so much in what you just mentioned. So let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned that there are 3 transitions during a race. Again, having spent a fair amount of time on YouTube going into the wormhole around skimo, it seems like there are a lot of different flavors of skimo. And what you're describing with this shorter format, you mentioned a lot of analogous events. To me, it almost sounds like XC Eliminator for anyone who is a mountain bike World Cup fan. That's an extremely short format race. I think of it as a VO2 effort with a very high degree of technical complexity and risk. With the skimo events that we're going to see in the Olympics, can you describe what's happening in each of these transition zones? Because again, I've seen content where there are chunks of a course where people might actually be running for a short period of time. And then there are the skinning components. And then there's the all important, I don't know what the transition at the top is called, where they strip the skins off dramatically. And you see
Yep.
people
Oh, yeah.
practicing it in their garage. Just talk about all those different transitions and what's actually going on. What are we seeing?
Yeah, you're right. It's funny. There's a lot of good content out here. Like 15 years ago, I made a video about skimo transitions. I was not that good at it, but I was good enough. At that time, it was like the only thing on YouTube about skimo. So, if you checked YouTube in whatever 2011, you would have seen me. Now there's much better stuff in terms of, the great form. But let's go through the sprint race. Again, it's only 3 minutes long, but the starting line, gun goes off, athletes take off, 6 of them side to side, and they're literally sprinting. I mean, if you watch it, they are running on skis, but still sliding and gliding, and they are going so fast. After about 10 seconds, they get to an area of the course that's called the diamonds, and these are kind of some flagging and stakes that make a diamond pattern, and you can go either right or left, but it adds a technical element, and you're exactly right, Andrew. It's just like the whole shot at the beginning of a mountain bike race, or maybe even a cyclocross race, is some similarities in terms of various skills. So you go through the diamonds, then you get back, you're going straight again, and that first transition is shifting from skinning uphill to running uphill for a short part that's called either the foot part or the boot pack. So in this Olympic format, there's a mark transition zone. It's fairly small, it's maybe 5 yards from the front to the back. You ski in, you stop, put your poles on the ground, take your feet off of the skis, grab the two skis, put them together, and then very quickly put the skis into a loop that's on the side of the pack. Pull the top of the ski around, pull this clip. You wear a backpack that's made just for this. Pull a clip from your pack and clip it on the skis. Reach down, grab your poles, and then take off. Again, at the Olympic level, they're sprinting. They are, and it's a steep hill. We're talking, whatever, 30% grade, and they're now running up it using poles with the skis on the back. At the top of that, you get to another transition zone where you go reverse order, pull off the clip, pull the skis out of the loop, put them back underneath you, clip back in one foot and then the other, pop your toe clips, and then you're skinning again back up to the very top, where is the best transition, the photogenic one, the one when the pro athletes do it, it looks so cool. Because what they do is called a double skin rip. So they have another marked transition zone. Go in, put your poles on the ground in between your skis because you don't want someone else to kick them away. And then from a crouch, they grab the front of the climbing skins on each ski and then yank them to the side while jumping in this incredibly dynamic movement, and then come back down, stuff in the skins. During that, actually, before the jump, you make some crucial adjustments. You have to adjust your boots, so you move them from walking mode or running mode or climbing mode, you could call it, to downhill mode. So you clip this thing down the back, and the boot now becomes super stiff. It's full carbon fiber, skis like a downhill boot, and then you make two small adjustments on the bindings so that the bindings are set to downhill as well. So the heel kicks in, grab those poles, boom, take off, and now it's alpine racing again around gates. In the Bormio course for the Olympics, there's a gap jump that you fly off. They have these big bank turns at the bottom, and then you go through the finish line. So that's the sprint race. The mixed relay actually has more transitions, so it's even more dynamic. But those are the key ones. From skiing uphill to running uphill, and then also from skiing uphill to skiing downhill. Thanks to Dynafit and Pomoka for supporting the Skimo Gold podcast, two of my favorite brands in the ski mountaineering space. If you've ever ridden a bike, you know how important the tires are because they are literally where the rubber hits the road. Well, when it comes to ski mountaineering, where the ski hits the snow on the uphill is the climbing skins. These are what allow you to get enough traction to stay attached to the hill, but also have enough glide to slide forward and do it with speed. The way I do that, and the way many of the Olympic athletes do that, is with the pink Pomoka skins. These have been my mainstay all along. Pomoka makes a variety of skins for different types of snow and different widths. They've got you covered. Check them out, Pomoka climbing skins.
Travis, for people who have seen the South Park timeshare episode and they have a basic knowledge of skiing, which is French fries and pizza, we're only going to be seeing French fries on the mountains at the Olympics. Can you give us a sense of what is the level of complexity of the terrain? Blue, black, double diamond? Like, what are we looking at that they're going down?
Yeah, good question. I mean, in these Olympic events, the downhill terrain is basically steep with gates. So there's not moguls. There's not you don't expect a lot of powder or trees or glades or cornices or couloirs. Basically it's probably black to double black sort of in terms of steepness. It's actually the place where the race happens in Bormio in Italy. I think it's the bottom of the run that they use for like the downhill and the Super G in the Olympics. So, it's that type of terrain. The non-Olympic events, if we get into a race called the individual race, that's the one where, you look it's epic. There's a ridge line. You take off your skis, and not only are you running, but you have a climbing harness on and you're clipped into a rope. Because if you fall, you might die. And you're doing that up a couloir and then along a ridge line. And then maybe there's a little rappel off of a cornice into a couloir where, you're skiing down a 10-foot wide thing with rocks on the side, that's super steep, variable snow, rocks all over, high consequence. That is the individual race. It's not in the Olympics right now, but it may be in either 4 years or 8 years. Hopefully that's coming. And that, if we get that, I mean, that you put drones out there, like, this is really cool TV stuff. So we'll see where it goes. There's even some mixed opinions in the skimo community. People want that epic, the soul of gravel, right? We've all heard that. Well, the soul of skimo, it's this, epic terrain, high consequence, longer races, right? People want that, and hopefully it'll happen. But at least in my opinion, skimo is in the Olympics. We've got two awesome disciplines. We've got all these athletes who used to focus on those longer races, and now they have honed themselves to the short, fast stuff. Like, this is awesome.
Travis, you're getting to the core of a very important question. I think for many of us, with the Paris Olympics still fresh in mind and the ray gun controversy and the breakdancing event, are there those out there, to go back to this dichotomy you just highlighted, between skimo that has an actual mountaineering component where you're in a harness, you're clipped in, you're on very high consequence exposed terrain? Is there an argument happening within people at the top of the sport about this shorter format that's happening in the Olympics versus more hardcore? I hate to call them more hardcore because they're both extremely challenging and these are the world's best athletes. But is this seen as real skimo, what we're going to see in the Olympics?
Yeah, great question, Andrew. I mean, there are various opinions, in my opinion, or in, again, co-host Cam Smith. I can't speak for Cam, but he's mentioned many times, when it was initially announced Olympics is just the sprint and the mixed relay, Cam was a little bummed because he was one of the best in the world at those epic things. And he had a bit of shift. He tweaked his training. And now he's in the Olympics and he is super pumped, and he's still really good at that other stuff. On the other hand, one of the interviews in our Olympic series coming up here is Italian Matteo Adolin. And he's kind of, if I was to personify the soul of skimo, this is the guy, folks. He has not done many English language interviews, but he is exciting. He's compelling. And we'll get to hear from him a bit of that other view, what was, and I think what still is skimo historically. In my own opinion, I think of these other sports I do. Think of cycling. How many different ways are there to ride a bike? And is one more legit than another? I don't know. I don't think so. Like, BMX biking is not my thing. And should it be in the Olympics? I think so. I love watching BMX in the Olympics, and it's totally different from watching the Tour de France or cycling in the Leadville 100, that I might do. So I think they're both great. And yes, there are some opinions out there. My hope for new viewers to skimo is, hey, this is just the first touch point, learn about the sport. And then, like you said, maybe go down YouTube or listen to our previous podcast and learn about other ways to do the sport. And 4 years or 8 years, we may see those in the Olympics. If you're an athlete and or coach looking for better planning, insights, and communication for your endurance training, please consider Training Peaks. I started using Training Peaks in 2013 as an athlete. I was training for the Lead Challenge series and being coached by the one and only Josiah Middaugh. Josiah got me going in Training Peaks, and we had a great season. I was able to win the series and set a record, and I honestly wouldn't have been able to do it without Training Peaks as the platform for our planning, for the data gathering, and for the communication back back and forth. I subsequently started using Training Peaks in my own coaching and have not stopped. I've literally looked at the platform every day since then, and I highly recommend it to you. If you're an athlete or a coach or both like me, try out Training Peaks.
Let's talk a little bit more about the level of effort that these athletes are going to be putting out. And for people who aren't familiar with Nordic skiing, it requires, so when you're using your whole body like this, these are some of the highest VO2 maxes ever measured among any athletes. And we're sending these athletes uphill, and then they have to be under control to do this fine motor skill to get down the
Yeah.
mountain, right? Can you just speak to what that effort is like, both the output and then the down regulation that's required to safely and expeditiously get down the mountain to win the race?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, they really are some of the fittest athletes in the world, and we could say that about an Olympian in any sport. But these are athletes who have a super high endurance capacity, but they also, with these shorter races, have an incredibly high capacity for explosivity and speed and VO2 max activity. And then, yes, these highly cognitive components, the transitions, and then also the downhill skiing and to some degree just the uphill skiing, maintaining form, doing it smoothly. It's highly dynamic, and the best athletes, similar to say a cyclocross race, are the ones who can gradually tighten the screws and by doing so put others into the red whereby mistakes are forced. So even though you've done the same transition 10,000 times and Andrew's watched 5,000 of them, um, you mess up because you can't see and you can't think, and you're tasting blood, and that's where mistakes happen on the transition or again on the downhill and sometimes on the uphill in terms of strategy or catching a ski on one of the stakes. In the diamond thing, you've practiced this a million times, and sometimes that pressure of the race environment, the exertion, it forces errors.
You just used a phrase that is the exact thing I think of when I think of this specific duration of effort, which is tasting blood. I think of a VO2 effort where you can, in your throat, you have that ferrous iron taste, right? Because you are tasting blood at some level. And when you're doing a whole body effort like this with the pulling and the sprinting, can you even feel your arms when you get to the top before you're then getting in your skis and going down? What does it feel like?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way that Cam and other pros have described it is you have to be so good and smooth with the transitions that they just become second nature. So you don't even have to think about it, and you're not worried about how do my lungs feel, how do my arms feel, whatever. Basically everything's on fire, and it has to be mechanical. And if anyone ever ran the 800-meter run in high school or in college, that's what I think of with the sprint race. You've basically run as hard as you can for, depending on how fast you are, whatever, a minute 40 to more. And you're totally out of it, and now you have to ski downhill full speed through gates without crashing.
It sounds really terrible, and it sounds like exactly the kind of thing that I love. And my podcast, Choose the Hard Way, is all about how hard things build stronger people who have more fun. And Travis, that's something you mentioned before we started recording today is yes, this is about going out and doing hard things. And also the hard things we love doing the most are fun, and we do it with the people that we love. So it's been awesome to get to be here today to talk to you a bit about what we're going to see going down at the Olympics. I have to say, what is the phrase that you use? The double skin rip. Wow. That's something
Yep.
else. I feel like you need to make a Skimo Gold t-shirt that says double skin rip, and then maybe you could have your PR for your double skin rip on there. That'd be phenomenal.
I love it.
But
If we do that, we're gonna put Cam's PR on there because
okay.
that move requires so much flexibility and
Yeah.
explosivity that I know better than to attempt it. I can transition pretty fast, for kind of a middle aged guy who's out there, but I'm not doing the double skin rip. Andrew, thanks so much. Really enjoyed it. Great interview as always. Audience, by the time this comes out, I think that Mr. Vontz's interview with Jens Vogt will be out. I think Yenzi, if you don't know, famous pro cyclist, TV personality. I think he's still super fit, and I think he was probably an Olympian, right, for Germany. Do you know if he was?
Yes, he was a multi-time Olympian, and yes, he was. And he came up through the Eastern Bloc system. I knew a lot about Jens prior to sitting down for this interview, and I spent some time with him recently at the Tour de Tucson. We go super deep. This is maybe the
Awesome.
deepest Yenzi interview yet, so I'm excited to
I'm
share it.
excited to hear. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed his previous interviews. I mean, when I was I don't know, teenager, I guess, watching the tour, I just remember like there's Jens on the front and every breakaway and always like every attack, boom, he's the man. So, yeah. Well, thanks again, Andrew, and great to talk to you as always. Hey, folks, big thanks to Andrew Vontz for joining us today. Be sure to check out Mr. Vontz's stuff, the Choose the Hard Way podcast, the Substack of the same name. And if you're thinking about hosting a podcast or doing any type of public speaking, check out One Real Voice. That is his communications consultancy. I'm telling you from experience, this is good stuff to help you hone your game. Thanks to our production team at Palm Tree Pod Co. Big job, guys, for all of us in February. Really appreciate your work. Listeners, we need your help too. Rate, review, subscribe, and most importantly, share these episodes with your friends. We want the spotlight to shine on Skimo. We want this to grow. We want to give these athletes from around the world whose interviews we'll be sharing over the next couple of weeks, we want it to grow for them, to help build their stars, to let their Olympic moment really glow and support their careers as well. So you can play a role in that, and we'd appreciate it. Thanks finally to our sponsors. It's a lot of work and a lot of cost, honestly, to make this happen every single day during the Olympics, and we couldn't do it without some fantastic brands. First and foremost, DynaFit and Pomoka, mainstays of Skimo and Alpine touring. We sure appreciate your stuff, and look out there for those DynaFit and Pomoka products. You'll see those pink skins hanging out of their little kangaroo pouches in the race. Look for that green DynaFit backpack out there in the Olympics, and also look for the cool DynaFit stuff. My kids are teenagers, and they think DynaFit is cool. That's a pretty good sign to me. Those are dad points. Thanks also to Training Peaks. This is the only platform I've used in over 10 years as an endurance coach, and also to track my own training in skimo, trail running, mountain biking, multi-sport, and also pack burro racing, one of my favorite summer sports. I'm not tracking data yet on the burro that I'm running with, but I'm thinking about it. If I can get a burro heart rate monitor on that guy and see his data in Training Peaks, that'll make the experience even better. It's the best platform around, folks, Training Peaks. Thanks also to Revanta Creatine by Neuro Reserve. I have taken creatine every single day for over a year and a half. I started it with a concussion recovery protocol, and I honestly think it's been a great tool that's helped me get back to where I am, to doing podcasts, coaching athletes, sending emails, all that kind of stuff. My favorite creatine is Revanta Creatine by Neuro Reserve. And finally, thanks to Camp. They've been with Skimo and mountain sports from the start. As you watch the Olympics, you're going to get a great sense of just the life and the mountain passion in Italy, in the mountains. And you're going to hear that from some of our athletes coming up. We talk with a number of members of the Italian national team. And that same vibe, that same spirit, that's what camp does with their gear and everything they've done all along. All right, folks. Thank you so much. We are on a roll here with Olympic Dispatch by Skimo Gold. Come on back tomorrow. We're talking with Julia Murata, a young and very fast athlete on the Italian national team. She is a podium contender in the sprint. She's been on the podium every race this year so far on the World Cup circuit. And boy, is she just a nice person who's fun to talk with. So come on back tomorrow on Skimo Gold.